Hi everyone, Matt here from Proof Fly Fishing. In our last video we went over the tools and equipment you need to build a rod. In this video we're going to do two things. I'm going to go over kind of the various components that you're going to need to build your rod, and then we're going to fit and install the grip onto our blank. So when you're first getting started, if this is your first or second build, it's a good idea to look for a kit. The nice thing about a kit is that it kind of simplifies the process for you. You're not trying to track down the right guides and size a tip top and a winding check and make sure that your reel seat and your grip all work together. So when you're looking for a kit, a good thing to look for is a kit that gives you some choices. So you can choose the different styles of grips, you can choose the reel seat, the type of guides. Some kits, allow you to choose the various color and different materials. So what's nice about those is that they're not just coming pre-packaged, they're actually being assembled for you, and the quality of the individual components tends to be much higher. So I want to go over just a couple things that to look for in a kit when making some decisions. So if we're doing a graphite rod, the types of reel seats available, it's kind of staggering, but with graphite, generally we're going to go with an uplocking reel seat. An uplocking reel seat is going to hold the reel as close to the grip as possible, just like this, as opposed to a downlocking reel seat, which is generally used with fiberglass or bamboo rods, which holds the reel further away from the grip. And the difference between those two is just how to get your rod to balance. There's nothing worse than fishing with a tip-heavy rod or a rod that has too much weight in the back. You want that rod to be light in the hand, and the way to achieve that is to have it balanced. So with graphite, we're going to go with an uplocking reel seat. It's very light, and so we don't need the reel pushed further back to help balance it. Now, the only complication with doing an uplocking reel seat is that it has a hood that is going to fit into a recess in the back of the grip. So if you can, if you're buying these parts individual, you'll want to make sure that the grip you get matches the reel seat that you're using. The best way to do that is to find a company that sells either both together or sells them compatible. So once you have your reel seat, and again, we're going to go over kind of how to install that a little bit later if you have questions about assembling that. But once you have that down, then we get to guides. Guides, again, there's a ton of different guides out there. Our kits use Snake brand universal guides. Nice thing about these guides is they're perfectly ground, so you don't need to prep them. In some other kits, you're going to get some lower quality guides that are going to need you to use either a Dremel or some sandpaper or a file to kind of get the guide feet smooth enough so that the thread will travel up them without getting snagged. But as far as the type of guides, you have Snake guides, which have 2 feet, and then you can have single foot guides. If you really want to minimize the weight of that rod, that's not a bad way to go. But functionally, they don't make a tremendous amount of difference, so that's a pretty easy decision. So once you have your components, again, try to find a kit the first time. It's just going to simplify the process. So once you have your kit, all the pieces of the rod, you'll also want to look for a finishing kit. And what a finishing kit's going to contain is usually it's a 2-part epoxy that we're going to use to seal the thread that's going to hold the guides on. Also some type of epoxy. This is a rod building epoxy. What's nice about it is that it's a paste. It's not liquid like most epoxies you'd find at, say, Lowe's or Home Depot. So it tends to stay where you put it, which can be really helpful when you're installing a reel seat or a grip. Another option too is varnish. It's kind of an older way to do things. A lot of people in fiberglass and bamboo use that, but it also works great on graphite. Something else to look in a kit, some sort of brushes, mixing cups. If you are using a two-part thread finish, then look for these self-sealing inserts. they're a lifesaver. They just keep things clean and make getting good measurements a very simple process. We have a couple kits available. We've got one for graphite, we've got one for fiberglass and bamboo, and they just come with everything that you're going to need to finish the build, and just kind of takes some of the complexity out. We also have a deluxe kit that has a few more options: color preserver, cork seal, some different ways to kind of tweak the final result of your build. And the very last thing you're going to need is a spool of thread. One spool should be more than enough for a rod. I would recommend going with size A, and nylon is what we're going to use on this build. Get like a 100-yard spool or so. That'll be more than enough for a couple rods. And if you want to pick up a metallic spool as well, we're going to be doing a trim band on the stripping guide, so we'll kind of show you how to work with that a little bit later. But that's pretty much it. As we go through the build, I'm going to explain the various pieces, like a winding check, the difference between a stripping guide and snake guides, and then how to install a hook keeper, stuff like that. But next we're going to get on to installing the grip. This is the grip that's been installed, so we'll show you exactly how we did that in just a minute. All right, thanks. Okay, we're back. I'm going to go over how to measure, open up, and fit a a grip, and then we're going to actually install it with some epoxy. So the first thing we want to do is measure how far down our reel seat's going to go. And so what you want to do here is grab some of your masking tape or any sort of tape that you have, and we're going to use that to lay out our blank. Go ahead and pull two pieces off. And we're going to take our reel seat and we're going to hold it parallel to our grip, just like this. And we're going to make sure the back of that reel seat is flush with the back of the blank. And then you just take your finger and hold it right where the little decorative band on this reel seat meets the blank. And just put a piece of tape there. Now what that tape's going to do is tell us how far down our grip needs to go. Again, we've gone almost the full length of this reel seat. The part that goes inside the grip you want to omit from the measurement. So lined up in the back, all the way up, minus the part that goes inside the grip, okay? Once you have that measurement, I want you to go ahead and take your grip, and without doing anything to it, slip it over the blank and see how far down it comes. Now this one has about 4 inches until it meets the tape that we have on there. So we're going to pop it off, slide it off, and we're going to take our rat tail file. Now what we want to do, we never want to open up the top of the grip. We want that to be as tight as possible. So we're going to always open it up from the bottom. And the way we're going to do it, we're going to put this in about 3/4 of the way, and we're going to give it 4 passes. And then we're going to rotate it about a 1/4 turn and 4 passes again. And keep rotating 1/4 turns, doing 4 passes. You can see some of that cork dust coming out. Blow out that dust, and then try it again. We're getting a little bit closer, and it's getting real tight toward the top now. So we can very carefully open that up. And again, I like to try to open it up from the bottom. Again, 4 passes and rotate. Blow that dust out. Now we're getting real close. We've got about 2 inches to go. And it's nice and tight up top, which is exactly how we want it to be. A few more passes and we should be there. Let's try this again. Not quite there. Again, it's a little tight on top. And it's okay to creep up on it. You want that top to be as
tight as you can get it without breaking the grip, obviously. When you get to the top, you can also put the rat tail file in the top, but just be very careful. Light passes in kind of a rotary motion. Blow that grip out. Got about an inch to go. I could probably force it all the way down, but I don't want to. I don't want it so tight that there's no room for epoxy in there. We want to leave a little bit of room. Open that top up just a little bit. Let's try it on. Yep, and we're there. So where we want that grip to come is just to the front of the tape that we've laid down. Any further and the blank's going to stick out the end of the blank, which we don't want. Then you have one piece that's longer than another piece. So when you get it there, go ahead and remove your grip. And I want you to hold your grip with the bottom part lined up with the tape on the bottom. And take your second piece of tape and mark the top of the grip on the blank. So now what we have are two pieces of tape, and the space in between measures where we want the epoxy to go. Just like that. When working with epoxy, you don't need a whole lot. It's always nice to have a little piece of paper towel around, but I'm going to grab some with my mixing stick here. I grabbed maybe, I don't know, around a teaspoon or so of the hardener. And then with the other end, that's very important, of our mixing stick, we're going to grab the same amount, or roughly same amount, this stuff's fairly forgiving, of the resin. We'll put those together. Close everything up. I'm going to mix this for about 30 seconds. Again, it's not an exact science here, but you want them well mixed. But because this is kind of a quick set epoxy, you don't want to be mixing this stuff for like 3 or 4 minutes because it's going to start to set up on you. And you'll see it kind of turn color. It'll kind of turn in almost like an ivory color, and you'll just kind of feel that it's mixed up well. So once you get it fairly clean, fairly mixed like that, go ahead and grab some on the end of your spatula, or if you want to use a brush, that's fine too. And we're going to apply it to the blank. Now, if you remember, when we fit the grip, we made sure that the top of that grip was a little bit tighter than the bottom of the grip. So what we want to do then is kind of focus a heavier amount of epoxy toward the top of the grip, because when we put it on, it's going to act like a squeegee and it's going to push it down to the lower grip where there might be a little more room. Now, because we're using an uplocking reel seat as well, what we want to do, we don't want to fill that inlet with epoxy as we're putting it on. So we've got epoxy over the whole thing. You can see kind of a thin coat, a little heavier toward the top. We'll go ahead and take our tape off that was measuring. Grab our reel seat and just carefully slide it down. I'm going to make sure we get it all the way down to where that tape is. And now here's an important part. Go ahead and clean your spatula or your stir stick, and you need to make sure that any epoxy that got pushed into that cavity, that inlet, gets removed. Again, this is another reason why we kind of put more epoxy toward the front than the back, but it's just a good way to keep things nice and clean so that when we go to install our reel seat a little bit later, we're not fighting any like hardened epoxy that might be left over from installing the grip. So again, clean it off on a piece of paper towel. It doesn't have to be perfect, but get it as close as you can. We don't need that. That epoxy's not really doing anything for us, and it can get in the way a little bit later. Once you have that clean, and this one's looking pretty good now, just a few more small spots in there. Then all you're going to do is take this and just lean it up against a wall, someplace where it's not going to be moved or bumped for, I don't know, 10 minutes or so, depending on the type of epoxy you're using. And you're all set. The grip is now on. We're going to wait to install the reel seat, and the reason for that is that we might want to rest this portion of the blank on a rod wrapping jig if we're wrapping a hook keeper, or if the stripping guide lands on the first section. So it's a good idea to have that. Otherwise, your blank kind of sits crooked in your jig, and it just makes things a little more awkward. But that's it. The grip is on. We're gonna let that set. And in the next video, we're going to install the tip top, and we're going to talk about how to align guides to the tip top, and yeah, we'll go from there. All right, thanks. We'll see you next time.